I want to take a moment to give a quick shout out to Punch Perfect Boxing. His breakdowns, especially of the fights coming out of Japan, have been absolutely top notch. And we are live. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Punch Perfect Boxing channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'll be breaking down and giving my prediction for the upcoming WBO Welterweight World Championship fight in Japan between Brian Norman Jr. and Jin Sasaki. Toward the end of the video, I'll also touch on the vacant IBF Light Flyweight World title fight between Araneta and Simsri, but the main focus today is Norman vs Sasaki. This matchup has been heavily requested, and I completely understand why. A lot of fans aren't too familiar with Sasaki, and that's fair. Japan doesn't often produce top-level fighters at welterweight. Historically, Japanese boxing has thrived from bantamweight downward, with standouts at middleweight and junior welter, but the welterweight scene in Japan has always been thin. Sasaki's rise into world contention at 147 pounds is unusual and speaks more to the current state of the division than anything else. Let's be honest, the welterweight division isn't what it used to be. Growing up, it was the glamour division, right behind heavyweight, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, Errol Spence Jr., Terrence Crawford, the list goes on. It was stacked for nearly 2 decades. Today, though, it feels weaker than at any point in my lifetime. With Jaron Bouts Ennis moving up to 154, Brian Norman Jr. has become the man at 147 almost by default. Sasaki being in the top 10 and challenging for a title reflects that decline. Now, about Norman, I've never fully bought into him as a generational talent. He's always been a superb athlete, but I had doubts about his technical ceiling. The first time he really impressed me was against Quinton Randall, a fight where I thought the better boxer might outclass the better athlete. Norman proved me wrong. Still, I wasn't completely sold until his fight with Giovanni Santillán. That performance was a revelation. He showed grit, skill, power, accuracy, and composure in a firefight many thought Santillán would win. It was the breakout performance I'd been waiting for, and since then, he's looked like the best version of himself. As for Sasaki, his career has been a roller coaster. He had a modest amateur background, turned pro young, and built a reputation as a puncher. But weight issues and disciplinary problems with the JBC stalled his momentum. He even came in 4 pounds over for his fight with Andy Hiroka, effectively disqualifying himself from winning the titles on the line. Hiroka stopped him late, and while Sasaki has rebounded at welterweight with a string of wins, they've largely been against fringe opposition. He's powerful, dangerous, and entertaining, but unproven at the very top level. The key question: does Sasaki have the puncher's chance? Maybe. Norman can be hit, and we saw in the Santillán fight that he's not invulnerable defensively. But Sasaki doesn't have the one-punch equalizer of a Wild.
Fortunate because, like I say, it's always been such a strong division. But, with boxing, only takes one Olympic cycle and then a couple of years of waiting around and a few people moving up in weight, and you end up getting a really strong division again. So I'm sure the welterweights will be making a resurgence really soon, but right now it's incredibly weak in my opinion. Brian Norman is a fighter who I've never fully quite bought into. He's impressed me at times, but he's never quite fully sold me. I've never quite bought the stocks or the shares in his career because I think when I was watching him coming through on Top Rank, I thought he was a very good athlete. You could just see that he was going to get to kind of fringe world level just on athleticism alone. He's an incredible athlete, but I wasn't sure the talent or the skills were quite there. The first fight where I really had to kind of just take my hat off to him and applaud him was the Quinton Randall fight, because I didn't necessarily think Randall would beat him, but I thought with the bookies, Randall was a smarter bet. I thought he was the better boxer. I thought that Norman was the better athlete, and sometimes I think the better boxer can get the better of the better athlete. And that wasn't the case. Norman won that fight. But even though he'd proved me wrong in the way that I bet on the fight, it still didn't sell me quite enough. I was still waiting for that performance